I stumbled upon this sub about a week ago and have since been thoroughly enjoying myself reading the stories. I figure I'll share mine. Just a quick history to set the stage. At a younger age, I moved from Chicago to Baltimore to take a job with the federal government. When I started, I hit it off with a couple guys who've since become my best friends. We all lived together for about 5 years until one by one we started moving on, getting married, etc. One guy, we'll call him John, left our place of employment to take a job as a Secret Service agent. As everyone went their separate ways, I thought I'd make a smart decision as a young professional and buy a house in 2007 right before the financial collapse. Needless to say, immediately after buying I was upside down, big time and struggling. I had some other co-workers move in, but they only lasted about a year before abruptly moving out, leaving me scrambling to find a roommate and thus setting the stage for my revenge story. I ended up posting on a bunch of venues to find a new roommate. One guy ended up far and above the best option. We'll call him Russell. Russell was a military vet who had served a couple tours downrange and was now a sous chef at a local restaurant. He was easy to get along with, so I pulled the trigger in haste without doing the proper checks I should have, primarily due to being in a desperate financial situation. The first sign something was off was when Russell moved in. He came with just a couple boxes and a TV. No bed, furniture, etc. The next clue came in with me chatting him up about his time in the military. On the surface, he could talk the talk, but as I got more nuanced, his answers became more, wrong. He claimed to be a former ranger, so he would have known the topics discussed. The final clue was the classic one. He started making excuses for rent payment on month 2. By this time, I knew something was not right, so I politely told Russell to move out, which he did immediately. Once gone, I went to Home Depot to buy new locks, and much to my surprise, my debit card didn't work. Come to find out, Russell had stolen a checkbook and cleaned me out. Every cent I had in my account was gone. At this time, I'm feeling a mixture of anger, fear of not being able to pay my mortgage, and disappointment in myself for not vetting him properly. When I ended up telling John, he was livid. He wanted every detail about the situation. Little did I know, John told all his co-workers, and they immediately opened a case on Russell. For those of you who don't know, the Secret Service also deals with financial economic crimes, albeit normally on a much larger scale than my savings account. Within a few days, Secret Service agents had tracked down and interrogated, arrested all the individuals who had cashed the fake checks on Russell's behalf. One turned and advised Russell would be at the Heck's last resort at the Baltimore Inner Harbor that night. John and his crew changed into plain clothes and went there to wait. Lo and behold, Russell shows up and acts like he owns the place. He started announcing that he was leaving on a deployment to Iraq, so he wanted to buy the entire bar some drinks. With my money, I should add. As he was standing there paying for everyone's drinks, John stood up and screamed Secret Service. "You're under arrest!" 3 agents slammed him down, cuffed him, and pulled him out where 2 black SUVs rolled up on the boardwalk to take him away. My other friend who had gone to observe said the entire restaurant paused in stunned silence for about 30 seconds. They take Russell in, and by this time, John says he's bawling his eyes out. The best part of the ordeal was John made him add in his written confession, "I routinely pretend to be an Army Ranger, but have never served." Before being taken to the city jail, Russell asked John, "Why did the Secret Service arrest me?" To which John replied, "You robbed the wrong guy." Epilogue. The bank ended up giving me all my money back very quickly under a fraud claim. I ended up attending Russell's court appearance with John, where he took a plea and spent 6 months behind bars. Needless to say, I was a bit more careful in choosing my next roommate, and I was even lucky to get her to marry me, as we've now been happily married for 5 years. Edit. I see a lot of comments about skepticism of how Russell was federally charged. I reached out to John, and he advised they charged him on the state level due to the low scale of the crime, which explains why he went to city jail and why I attended city court. I did a quick search and found this, since I know you'll ask. 18 U.S.C. C-Sec 13 allows for federal agencies to charge for state offenses, which would be offenses under state law in which federal territory reside. So, background. Back in 2004, on the day of my 16th birthday, I got hired as a cashier by a local grocery store, and I was hired right along with another male from my school. This is important. On the same day. Note, I got hired due to my uncle being the store's butcher, so he got me the interview. Now, fast forward a couple weeks, and I was working most of my shifts with my schoolmate. He was a senior, so I thought it was cool and all. It was rare we didn't have shifts together, so of course we got close, and before long, we started dating. No problems were really happening until it came to the 90-day review to see if I got a pay increase now that I was off probation. Only when I got called back, they started to question me why my checkout time was slower than my boyfriend. I didn't have a real answer, as I rarely made mistakes. Thus, I felt it was fine, you know? At the time, I didn't think anything of it. A week later, I was fired, and even later, I heard from my uncle the management had thought I was stealing. Back then, keeping tabs on what was in the cash registers wasn't a thing like it is now. I was absolutely shocked, as I've never stolen anything from there and had in fact helped them save a bunch of products the week before I was fired, so it floored me. Now, fast forward to summer break, and me and my boyfriend ex-coworker are watching a movie, and it's an expensive one, like 3D and all the works, with a nice restaurant afterwards. I was surprised because I know how much he makes, so I asked, and guess what he does? He starts bragging about how he was stealing from the local grocery. I'm beyond livid, but I stayed silent. We were still in the middle of dinner after all. I heard everything from him while he was bragging about it and went right to my uncle, who then took me to the manager, the good one, and we set up a sting to catch him in the act. He had told me how Fridays were the best because of the big rushes, and he could slip more then. So the manager makes sure they get the shifts set up right to make it happen. Now note, I didn't get to see him that Friday or even that next day. I saw him next Monday when he called me breaking down and asking me to hang out. Turns out he was caught with nearly $100 from the till, as they had made sure to count it all and found it on him. He is legit in tears as he tells me he was now charged with theft and how he spent the weekend in jail because his parents decided to let him sit in there to make the lesson stick. I flat out laughed in his face. I told him never to call me again and just left, dumping him there. I never told him why I dumped him. Mind you, I figured if he couldn't figure out that he got me fired with stealing, I didn't need to waste my breath. Note, I have no idea what happened to him after that, as he was a senior when we met, so he wasn't there when school started again. I did not go back to that job, though. I was done. I mean, the only reason they thought it was me was that I was 30 seconds on average slower than him. Yeah, not enough reason in my opinion. Sorry. This is how it starts. My girlfriend decided to move to NJ after graduation to start off work. Being a poor graduate student at the time, she is looking to save money by sharing an apartment with a roommate. She hunts for a place on Indian Craigslist and finds a 2-bed apartment posted by another girl. The rent is cheap and the girl seems to be okay. She moves in. Soon, she realizes that this girl has a fiancé. Let's call him Jerkface. Jerkface works as a software engineer through a shady consulting firm. He visits his girl every weekend and consummately displays his obnoxious self. He hoards the only bathroom every night for 2 hours at a time, taking a beauty bath. Post his bath, he proceeds to watch Indian TV at full volume late into the night. This happens every weekend. When I heard this, I asked my girlfriend to move out, but the rent is cheap and she wants to avoid the hassle of searching for another place. Fast forward 3 months. Jerkface is laid off from his job and moves into my girlfriend's shared apartment. Now he hoards the bathroom twice a day for 2 hours each and blasts Indian TV at full volume all day. My girlfriend is super annoyed and brings this up with his fiancé. She asks my GF to adjust for a while as she thinks her boyfriend will get a job soon and move out. She also promises to ask Jerkface to tone down his obnoxious behavior. Nothing changes. And then my girlfriend starts receiving emails from an unknown ID with inappropriate messages. My girlfriend has seen her fair share of perverts and proceeds to block this email ID, but the emails keep coming from other alternate IDs. She keeps blocking them until one day she receives a message that has info about our relationship. This creeps her out. Our relationship is new, and very few people know that we are together. She forwards me those emails to see if I can figure out who this pervert is. I immediately suspected Jerkface, as he was around when I helped her move into this place. To test my hypothesis, I visited her the next day and stayed with her for a couple of days. No emails. The next day, I pretend to leave, and she gets another email that makes me pretty sure this was Jerkface, but I had no hard evidence to confirm it was him. I needed to come up with a plan. I went through all his old emails, and there was one that was sent from a cellular device. Aha! I looked up the email details, and I discovered that it was sent from an iPhone device. This makes my case stronger. The IP address points to the same approximate location where my girlfriend stays. Also, Jerkface has an iPhone. Still not 100% sure. I get an idea and I ask my girlfriend to play along. I rented out a hotel close to her place, in case Jerkface turns crazy. My girlfriend tells her roommate that she has been receiving inappropriate emails from some unknown person and that she is going to approach the cops. Jerkface's face turns blue. He asks my girlfriend not to go to the cops as they will not register a case without any indication of a real threat, like I did not know that. She pretends to agree with him. The next day, she tells Jerkface and his girl that she went to the cops, and they traced the IP of the sender. The emails are being sent from the home Wi-Fi network. He proceeds to convince his girl that it is super easy to hack into a home Wi-Fi network and it could have been anybody. His girl buys the story. They say love is blind and it's obviously true. Then, the final bombshell, a few hours later, my girlfriend tells Jerkface and his girl that the cops want her to come to the police station this evening. The cops have identified the pervert who has been sending her the emails. She also tells them that the cops want her to press charges and it will be a 2-year jail term at the minimum. He is now in panic mode. My girlfriend can hear him pacing inside his room, yelling at his girl. He comes out sobbing and confesses. He asks my girlfriend not to pursue charges and to ask the cops to forget the whole thing. He is also willing to refund her rent for the last 6 months from his pocket. Meanwhile, I have already found her a new 1-bedroom apartment. She takes the money and leaves. A few weeks later, Jerkface gets an anonymous email. There were no cops all along. There will be if you get the slightest idea of retaliating, though. On the same day, my girlfriend gets an email from Jerkface's fiancé. It reads, "Sorry for all the trouble. As you can imagine, I broke off my engagement with that pervert. Also, he had to return to India as he could not find a new job. Good riddance."